Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, adada khalqihi wa rida nafsihi wa zinata arshihi wa midada kalimatihi. Allahumma la uhsi thana'an alayka anta kama athnayta ala nafsik. Allahumma fasalli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. فيقول الله تبارك وتعالى: الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. وقال الله تبارك وتعالى: ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. صدق الله العظيم. وعن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with a wide range of faculties, abilities, talents. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us many physical attributes, physical traits. And one of the most powerful bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ability to express ourselves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the human being an ability to express himself that has not been given to any other makhluk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught him how to express himself. Allamahul bayan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled in us this ability to express ourselves. And across the world, human beings speak hundreds of languages and thousands of dialects. And وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ. It is from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that how the human being is one species, yet they have so many different languages. All the other species have one language amongst that species. One mode of communication, that's it. One code that they follow. But the human being, being one species, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created him with a multitude of colors, a multitude of ethnicities, and with that comes a multitude of languages. It is a bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this tongue, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam, have we not given him naj'al lahu aynayn? Did we not give him two eyes? Wa lisanan wa shafatayn? Did we not give him a tongue and two lips? So these faculties are very powerful things. And this tongue can be used in so many good ways that it is difficult to count how many good things can be achieved with this tongue. But the same applies to the harm that is caused by this tongue. This tongue is also one of the most detrimental things and one of the most dangerous things that we possess. So, what the Muslim needs to understand and learn is how this tongue can be used in the best way possible and how to protect it so that it is not misused. It does not become the toy of shaitan. It does not become the vehicle through which shaitan does his work. So the Quran reminds us that every word, every speech, everything that he says is being recorded by angels. Everything we say is being recorded. A person who knows that there is a video recording or a tape recording of their conversation is going to be very selective about their words. And here, everything we say from the time we are born till the time we die is being recorded. But how many times do we stop to think about that? Just that fact that what I'm saying is being written down, it is being documented. Perhaps if we did pay attention to it, we would also become very selective with what we say and what we don't say. And we would be very careful not to say anything that will incriminate us, that will cause damage and causes destruction on the Day of Judgment in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is a wide body of ahadith that pertain to this, the usage of the tongue. One hadith says that the one who observes silence has saved himself. He has gained salvation. Another mentions that silence is wisdom, but there are very few people who adopt this wisdom. Another hadith says that the Sahabi Sufyan radiallahu anhu asked the Prophet ﷺ that, give me some advice about Islam. Tell me something about Islam that I don't need to ask anyone after you. So the Prophet ﷺ said that, say that you believe in Allah. Say that you believe in Allah, profess your faith in Allah, and remain steadfast and upright on this faith. He said, what should I be careful of? What should I avoid? The Prophet ﷺ pointed towards his tongue. This hadith is reported by Tirmidhi and others. That this is the thing that you should be scared about the most. And Uqba ibn Amir radiallahu anhu asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is salvation? In other words, what is the method that guarantees salvation? So the Prophet ﷺ said, Amsik alayka lisanak. Restrain your tongue. Restrain your tongue. وَلْيَسَعْكَ بَيْتُكَ. Don't leave your house unnecessarily. Keep yourself in the confines of your house. وَابْكِ عَلَى خَطِيئَتِكَ. And cry frequently over your own mistakes. If you can do these things, let your house be sufficient for you. Let your house be vast enough, spacious enough for you. It means that when there is a chance of fitna, and when there is a chance of being misguided, or there is a chance of falling into some sort of a confusion that will affect a person's deen, then it is better for them to stay in their house. And cry frequently over your sins. What that means is, think of how weak you are and how much in need you are of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and forgiveness, and cry over it. Another hadith, famous hadith, says that from Sahal ibn Sa'd ibn Sa'di radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ says that a person who guarantees for me that which is between his jaws and that which is between his legs, I guarantee Jannah for him. A person that can protect, guard these two parts of his body from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I guarantee Jannah for him. Famous hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, in which the Prophet ﷺ asked him, when Mu'adh radiallahu anhu asked that, will we be held accountable for what we say, what we utter? So he ﷺ said, what is wrong with you, O Mu'adh? What else will throw people face first into Jahannam other than the crops harvested by their tongues? Hasaidu al-sinatihim. So hasaid is plural of hasid, and hasid refers to that crop which has been harvested already. So the example of speech has been given as if we're planting seeds. Every time we say something, we have planted a seed. It's either going to produce a fruit that is going to benefit us, or it's going to produce a fruit that is going to destroy us. So on the Day of Judgment, these seeds, the plants of these seeds will be harvested, and they will be placed in the scale of deeds. And then it will be seen that whose speech is leading them to salvation and whose speech is leading them to destruction. And most people, in the case of most people, the harvest of their tongues is going to lead them face first into the fire of Jahannam. Abdullah al-Thaqafi radiallahu anhu asked the Prophet ﷺ, what thing do you fear most about me? What thing do you fear most regarding me? The Prophet ﷺ grabbed his tongue and he said this. Yani, if I am afraid that there is something that can destroy you, something that can ruin you, I am scared that it may be your tongue. And the other hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu says that a person's iman cannot be upright until his heart is upright. A person's iman cannot be correct until their heart is correct. And a person's heart cannot be correct until their tongue is correct. Sometimes we like to take everything and internalize it and say, you know what? Don't judge me by what I'm saying. Don't decide about me. I know what's in my heart. Yes, you know what's in your heart. Allah also knows what's in your heart. But the fact of the matter is the heart, وَإِنَّمَا جُعِلَ اللِّسَانُ عَلَى الْفُؤَادِ دَلِيلًا, that this tongue is an indicator of what lies inside the heart. The tongue is the tarjuman of the qalb. It is the interpreter of the heart. If khair is coming from this tongue, it means the heart also has khair in it. And if this tongue is spreading shar or speaking those things which are displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means those same elements exist inside the heart. So iman is something that rests in the heart. So a person's iman cannot be complete or correct until their heart is correct. It makes absolute sense. But it goes on to say that a person's heart also cannot be correct until their tongue is correct. So in other words, we cannot afford to allow our tongues to utter whatever rolls off of them. We cannot afford this. And we must keep in mind that our tongues are a reflection of our hearts. If there is piety on our tongues, it is an indication that there is piety in our hearts. If there is truth on our tongues, it's an indication that there is truth in our hearts. If there are words of love on our tongues, it is an indication that there is love inside the heart. If there are kind words being uttered, it's a reflection of inner kindness. And if there are harsh words being uttered, it's an indication of inner harshness. And if there are words of anger being uttered, it's a sign of inner anger. And if there are words of jealousy being uttered, it's an indication of inner jealousy. If there are words of iman being uttered, it's an indication of iman. And if there are words of kufr being uttered, it's an indication of an inner kufr. So the matter of the tongue becomes a very serious matter. If our iman rests on it, how crucial must it be? Another hadith mentions that a person who wants to stay safe, a person who wants to attain safety, should try to stay quiet most of the time. Try to stay quiet most of the time. What happens every morning? Something very interesting happens every morning with all of us. The hadith of Tirmizi states that when a person wakes up, all of the limbs and body parts appeal to the tongue. They all make an appeal to the tongue. And they say, "Ittaqi Allah fina." In one riwayah, فَإِنَّمَا نَحْنُ بِكَ. Please, fear Allah regarding us, regarding our safety. Because our safety depends entirely on you. فَإِنَّكَ إِنِ اسْتَقَمْتَ اسْتَقَمْنَا وَإِنْ إِعْوَجَجْتَ إِعْوَجَجْنَا. If you stay upright, then we will also stay upright. In other words, if you speak good things, we will be able to carry out good deeds. But if you start speaking bad things, then we will follow that, and we will also start doing bad deeds. So the tongue, if the heart is the king of the body, that's how the heart has been compared. It's the king of all the limbs. Then the tongue is the spokesperson of the body. It is the khatib of the body, the orator, the one that gets the body all excited to do something. Think about it. When you're talking in an angry tone, don't you feel like doing something angry? It starts with words. Words get heated and heated and heated, and then you feel like doing something angry. When you talk words of kindness, you feel like showing kindness. When you do the dhikr of Allah with your tongue, your body wants to engage in the obedience of Allah. When you express ingratitude to Allah with your tongue, your body is disinclined to obey Allah. So every morning the limbs appeal to the body, to the tongue, and say, please, for our sake, stay upright. We are all relying upon you. There's a lot riding on you. So please stay upright. And in fact, another riwayah mentions that all the limbs of the body complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the sharpness of the tongue. They complain that, oh Allah, we are afraid that because of this tongue, because of the things this tongue has uttered, the whole body, of course the whole body is thrown in Jahannam, not just the tongue. That because of this tongue we will all have to suffer. So there are many other ahadith and many other words of wisdom pertaining to this tongue. But what we want to, once we understand the importance and the cruciality of it, we want to turn our attention to the correct usage of this tongue. How can this tongue be used in the best way, and how can it be restrained from saying those things that are destructing or harmful, or those things that will doom a person. So when we look at speech, we see that there are different types of speech that all of us utter. Generally speaking, there are 4 types of speech. There is speech that is purely harmful. It's purely harmful. It's wrong. Then there is speech that is purely beneficial. A person, for example, utters vulgar words. This is a speech that can only do harm to this person and to others. Then there is a speech that is only beneficial. The remembrance of Allah, the words of Allah, talks of Allah, recitation of the Quran, conveying the message of the Quran. This is something that only has benefit. And then there is speech that carries both harm and benefit. There are some elements of harm in it, but there are some elements of benefit in it. And then there is some speech that has neither harm nor benefit. These are 4 types of speech. Purely harmful, purely beneficial, harmful and beneficial, and lastly, neither harmful nor beneficial. This is how we can categorize the speech that all of us use, that all of us utter. So, obviously, the first category, the speech that is purely harmful. And harmful speech includes all of those things that Allah has forbidden us to say and Rasulullah ﷺ has forbidden us to say. Words of kufr and shirk, of course, they lead one to kufr and shirk. Lies, this has been forbidden. Backbiting has been forbidden. Slandering has been forbidden. These are things that can only harm. No one has ever benefited by slandering anyone. Ever. No one has ever benefited. Only causes harm. So that speech which is solely and purely harmful, it must be abstained from in all conditions at all costs. The second type of speech is the one that is totally beneficial. But we'll come to that at the end. I want to talk about the other 2 types first. The speech that carries both harm and benefit, it should also be avoided because the harm will undo the benefit. The harmful things that we utter will overshadow the beneficial things that we utter. So when there is a talk that has some elements of benefit and some elements of harm, it's better to avoid it altogether. And then there is speech that cannot benefit and cannot harm. Just like we say laghu, just talking, just conversation. It's not benefiting anyone, it's not hurting anyone. So someone might argue that, well, we're not hurting anybody, we're just talking. Yeah, you're just talking. But the question is, if it's not beneficial, your time is being devoted to it. Who will recapture that time for you? You spent that amount of time and energy in something that serves absolutely no purpose to you. So speech that has no benefit and no harm should also be avoided. Why would you do something that has no benefit and no harm? Why would you spend your time in that? Wouldn't you rather spend your time in something that you're going to gain something from? So those were the three types of speeches that, generally speaking, we should avoid to different degrees. The first one, you must absolutely avoid it. The second one, you should avoid it because the harm is going to outdo the benefit. And the third one is better to avoid it because you're wasting your time and energy. Then that category which is purely beneficial. Now someone might think that, well, if it's purely beneficial, then we should jump on it. We should engage in it day and night because it's purely beneficial. Well, yes, but no. Because Shaitan will even use this speech, this purely beneficial speech, to his advantage and our disadvantage. He will use it as a door to get into our minds and get into our a'mal and spoil it. So the believer must be wary, must be alert of the potential harms of even this type of speech. Because while we are speaking great and beautiful and wonderful things, we open up the door for very fine, almost undetectable traces of showing off, of acting like something that we are not, of backbiting, of self-praise. Those very fine traces of these elements also appear in our speech. Do they not? They do. A person, while they're talking, they're talking about something really good, but the intention changes sometimes. Let me show these people how much I know. Let me use this opportunity to tell them how experienced I am. Let me use this to build some social capital with these people, to build supporters and fans. Let me use this opportunity to gain importance in their eyes. Let me use this opportunity to make someone else look bad. So those opportunities sneak in a very subtle fashion. And unless you are extremely alert and diligent, they will sneak in. And through good speech, you will also commit mistakes. So it's a pretty difficult thing. The matter of the tongue is pretty difficult. I remember somebody came to Umar radiallahu anhu saying that he wanted to give a talk. People must have been pushing him that we want to hear you talk, we want to hear you talk. So Umar radiallahu anhu, apparently he might have heard that this person was being asked to give a talk, or this person was giving talks on certain places. He said, I heard you're giving talks. He said, yes. He said, you're doomed. You're finished. You give talks. This is the approach of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to cry. He used to say every speech that a person gives on the Day of Judgment, they will be asked about that speech. And they will be asked if they really, really, really gave it only for the sake of Allah. And how careful were they when they were giving that talk? So he used to cry. So when we consider these things, the ultimate conclusion is that we all have to become extremely, extremely careful. The purpose of this talk is to make us acutely aware of our tongues and what they are doing day and night. What are these tongues doing? When our book of deeds is going to be opened and all our talk, all our speech is going to be presented to us, what are we going to read on that day? Garbage, rubbish, aimless, idle talk? What are we going to find in our sahifa, in our book of deeds? when it's opened up to us and Allah says, "Iqra kitabak," read your own book. You see what's in it and you decide where you should go. And we open in these pages and volumes of just laghu, just useless, aimless, idle talk. What will become of us? And remember one thing, shaitan will use good speech to mislead us towards other intentions and motives towards that speech, or conveying other messages through that speech. And he will try to get us to speak useless, idle things and use that opportunity to take us towards something which is even more harmful. And there are some things that if this tongue does it, of course, remember, it's not the tongue acting on its own. The tongue is a reflection, it's an interpreter of the heart. But until we speak it, we're not held accountable for the sin of saying it. We can harbor thoughts, but as long as we are working on them and on removing them, that these thoughts should get out, and we're not uttering them, there's a good chance that we can actually correct the process that's inside. But the moment we start expressing those thoughts, then it is counted as one sin after another sin after another sin. So some of the major mistakes, errors, and catastrophes of the tongue, one of the biggest ones is backbiting. The Quran says, وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. You should not backbite one another. أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? You would hate it. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this ayat in front of a crowd of non-Muslims. So this is what the Quran says about backbiting. And they were shocked that the Quran has these kinds of teachings in it. And I said the analogy of eating the flesh of a dead person. Why not just eating the flesh of your brother? Why does he have to be dead? Because backbiting is something so low. It is something so cheap, and it is something so lowly that you are taking advantage of someone's absence. They are not there to defend themselves. They are not there to speak for themselves. You do not have the courage or the generosity or the nobility to allow them to say what they need to say. You attack them behind their back. And that's just as low, as mean, as disgusting as going to a dead body which is defenseless. The cadaver, the dead body, cannot protect itself against anyone. Anyone can go and kick it and punch it and do whatever it wants. So you went up to a dead body, motionless, and you went and took a big bite out of it. How disgusting is that? And how brave is that? How courageous is that? You did that to a dead body? That makes you brave? That makes you the ultimate coward. That you waited for it to die, and then you ate the decomposing flesh. So similarly, a person takes advantage of someone's absence and says something about them that they would dislike. The Prophet ﷺ defined ghibah, backbiting, as ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ, to mention your brother in such a way that it would displease him, to say anything. And then he ﷺ explains that if what you say actually exists in that person, if that fault, that flaw, that blemish, let's just say even that sin exists in that person, you have committed ghibah, you have backbited him. And if that sin doesn't exist, then you have slandered him, an even greater sin, to attribute something falsely. Now some people will justify it by saying, no, I could say this to his face as well. Maybe you could. So what if you could? It doesn't mean that now you can say it behind his back as well. It doesn't mean that. Now, backbiting is not restricted to clearly saying it with your tongue. I mean, this is the worst form of backbiting, where you're clearly speaking about someone negatively behind their back. But backbiting also includes hints, hinting towards it, just dropping a hint so the other person understands what you're trying to say. You've conveyed your message just with a subtle hint. Sometimes by pointing towards someone, making a face, or mimicking, copying someone, making fun of them behind their back by copying them, or talking sarcastically about them. All of this is included in backbiting. Because if you did any of this in front of that person, would they not dislike it? And listening to backbiting makes a person party to the act itself. If someone is backbiting about someone, so what should we do? We should sit there and listen? Say, okay. Or stay quiet? No, we need to leave that gathering. Either stop the person or leave that gathering. So just like speaking ghiba is haram, listening to it is also unlawful. You cannot listen to it. So why do people backbite? It's different for every person. It's not always the same reason that makes people backbite. For some people, it's anger. They're angry at someone. And the way they vent that anger is by saying bad things. They're upset, so they're not in a mood to say anything good about them, so they'll say bad things about them. They have some kind of anger. For some people, they're trying to please someone. And they know that Mr. A and B don't get along. So to make A happy, you say bad things about B. So he's going to laugh and smile and he's going to feel really good about himself because you are making fun of or talking bad about his enemy, his opponent. So to make him feel good, you're backbiting. Some people do it for this reason. Some people have their own issues with others and they're afraid that this person might start talking about me. It's better I start talking about him first. So preempting someone else's verbal assault, they will start talking bad. Let me ruin this person's reputation so that when he does get up to say something about me, he has no importance left. He has no credibility left in the eyes of people. So let me do it first. Some people, they do it because they have a weakness, they have a blemish, but they want to direct the attention of people towards someone else. They have a weakness, they have a flaw, but they don't want people to notice what they're doing wrong or what their weaknesses are, so they'll just direct their attention to someone else. Do you know what so-and-so does? Do you know what so-and-so does? Do you know what so-and-so does? And sometimes it's an ego thing where we want to make ourselves look better. We want to make ourselves have a better image. And we feel that the only way we can do that is by ruining someone else's image. If I ruin his image and I tell people, oh, he does this and this and this, by the way, I don't do such and such and such things. So that makes me look good. So by making him look bad, I end up looking good. For some people, it's jealousy. And jealousy is that somebody has something, you don't want them to have it. And jealousy is a very powerful emotion. That's all jealousy is. That someone has something, you don't want them to have it. Whether you also have it or not is irrelevant. You might have even better of that thing. Somebody has, for example, a Rolls Royce. Okay? Supposedly a very expensive, very fancy car. Another person gets a Lexus. Well, your car is much more superior to his car, But the fact that he has a Lexus is bugging you. And you don't want him to have it. You're asking, why does he have it? Somebody has a mansion, huge house. Another person buys a good size house, not as big, but it's a good, nice, decent house. It's bugging this person. Why does he have a house? Whether I have one or not, that's none of anyone's business, but why does he have one? So sometimes jealousy, it's not because you don't have something that you're upset. It's just that somebody else has it. You don't want them to have it. And it's bugging you. So someone has something that you don't want them to have, and now you feel that you need to get back at them or take something away from them. So you do that by backbiting, by saying negative things about them. It makes you feel better. Pacify yourself. No, I'm good. I'm okay. That person is bad. They might have that thing. But you know what? They have so many other flaws. It's not even worth it for him to have that thing. Yeah, he might be wealthy, but you know what? He does this and this and this and this and this and this and this. So we make ourselves feel better that way. And some people backbite just for the sake of joking, just for the sake of making people laugh and passing time. And some people do it because they really want to ridicule someone. They want to make fun of someone. So there are different motives for backbiting. Sometimes the same person can be motivated by many different things. And sometimes different people can be motivated by different things. But the fact is that a mu'min, somebody with iman, who is trying to protect his iman, who knows that my iman cannot be complete and correct until my tongue is upright, he is going to be very diligent about the way he uses his tongue. So he might be very much inclined to say something, but his iman and his taqwa will hold him back. No. I shouldn't say it. It's going to harm me. It's going to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And shaitan, look, you cannot outsmart shaitan, so don't ever try. You cannot outsmart shaitan. Our only escape from shaitan is Allah. Our only protection from shaitan is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not ourselves. That's why we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I take the protection of Allah from this shaitan. There is nothing else that can save us. Our own intelligence, even our own piety, nothing can save us from shaitan but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And shaitan is so clever, he is so clever that he can take any situation and make it an opportunity for sin. Any opportunity in life, shaitan can exploit it and make it an opportunity of sin. Sometimes a person could backbite by, it looks like they're expressing surprise and amazement at something. Do you know what? You know what I just saw? I don't believe it. And in that expression of surprise and amazement, they went and backbited someone. For someone, it might be an expression of pity and sympathy. Oh, that poor guy, poor guy must be going through really hard times. I saw him stealing the other day. So the excuse or the pretext is pity and sympathy. But what is the actual message that's being conveyed? It's something bad about someone. And sometimes shaitan makes a person believe or makes a person use an expression of anger for the sake of Allah, as if they're doing it out of their iman or out of their ghairah. As a believer, no, I cannot tolerate that so-and-so does this and this and this and this. No, I cannot tolerate this. This is wrong. So shaitan makes them feel like their anger is for the sake of Allah. But remember one thing, that when our anger is for the sake of Allah, it never leads us to disobey Allah. Anger for the sake of Allah cannot lead us to backbiting. That backbiting is haram. Backbiting is haram. And it is a very severe sin. And one hadith says it is more severe than fornicating. So if their anger was for the sake of Allah, wouldn't it lead them to do something that pleases Allah? It means that their anger is for the wrong reasons, or it's for mixed reasons. If it was solely and purely for the sake of Allah, they would do something to stop the munkar. If it was a munkar, if it was something wrong, then what has Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam advised us to do? Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, fa in lam yastati' fa bilisanihi, fa in lam yastati' fa biqalbihi, wa dhalika ad'afu al-iman. When you see something wrong, you should stop it. You should change it with your hand, rectify it with your hand. If you can't rectify it with your hand, then rectify it with your tongue. If you can't rectify it with your tongue, then rectify it with your heart. This person didn't rectify anything. He went and started backbiting. What did he rectify? He didn't rectify anything. Ruined his own iman and made other people sinful by listening to what he had to say. But they're on their high horse that this is something of iman, this is something of taqwa, this is something of religiousness. Because of this, I am doing this as a religious responsibility. So when you tell other people about it, it is nothing more than an effort to disgrace someone. And when you go to that person and advise them with love and with wisdom, then this is called nasiha. And on this, Allah will reward you. If someone did do something wrong, or you saw someone doing something wrong, then what is your responsibility? Go and talk to them with respect, with love, and make them understand that they did something wrong. And then your duty is discharged. It's finished. It's done. So how do we treat backbiting? The disease of backbiting. So the first thing is that we need to learn about how dangerous of a sin it is. The Quran compares it to eating the flesh of our dead brother. Another hadith says that it burns good deeds just like fire burns hay. How quickly does hay burn when it's lit? In a second, whole bale of hay is gone. Just like that, deeds are scorched and burned, erased, deleted through backbiting. The other thing is that every time we backbite someone, we are giving away our good deeds to them, and we are taking their sins on our shoulders, in our account. So our good deeds, whatever good deeds we have, they're transferred to their account. Their bad deeds are transferred to our account. Isn't that amazing? These people who feel like they're doing this for the sake of Allah, really? You're doing it for the sake of Allah, but you're transferring all of your good deeds to that person in the process, and you're taking that person's sin, including the sin that you are talking about, you're taking that into your own account. Now this person does not have to give hisab for that sin. You have gotten them forgiven by backbiting them. Now you have to give hisab for that same sin. You saw someone lying, for example. So you went and started telling people that this person lies. This person lied. He's a liar. So what just happened when you did that? You gave away your good deeds to that person and you took their sins. And if they did in fact lie, then lying was also one of their sins. So now he doesn't have to answer for the lying, you have to answer for the lying. You assume the responsibility of their sin in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How amazing is that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not unfair. Allah is not unjust. He is the ultimate just. He is the absolutely just. So one of the ways to correct this habit of backbiting is to understand how dangerous it is. And we keep giving away our good deeds, keep giving them away until there are no more good deeds left, and then we have to take the burden of sins for other people in our account. The other thing, the treatment, because this whole series is about self-rectification. So the treatment is very important. Focusing on one's own faults and flaws. Focusing on our own flaws. And we are filled with flaws. The day the moment, the morning or evening where we look in the mirror and tell ourselves how good we are, how complete we are, it's probably the worst day in our lives. It's the most unfortunate day of our lives. The day we tell ourselves that we are complete, we are sufficient, we are good the way we are. We are filled with flaws. If we just open up our eyes and the eyes of our heart, we will find that we are nothing but flaws from head to toe. We are nothing but a compilation, a combination, a pile of faults and flaws and mistakes. But only those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favors are able to see and detect their own faults and flaws. And those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not care for, He doesn't show them their faults either. Go on, go ahead. Enjoy it. And to not be able to recognize our flaws is the biggest flaw. To not be able to see our mistakes is the biggest mistake. So like the hadith says, طُوبَى مَنْ شَغَلَهُ طُوبَى لِمَنْ شَغَلَهُ عُيُوبُهُ عَنْ عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ. Glad tidings for the one whose own faults keep them too occupied to look at the faults of others. Wait, how good is your iman? How good is your salat? How good is your siyam? How good is your tilawat of Quran? How good is your taqwa? How good is your earning? How good is your spending? How good are your akhlaq? How good is your speech? How good is your morning? How good is your evening? How did you wake up in the morning? How many sunnahs of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did you leave out? How did you go to sleep at night? What did you do from this time to this time? If we just sit down and take a quick muhasabah, and one of these sessions we'll talk about muhasabah, taking an account of yourself, doing an audit of yourself. We'll talk about that later on, inshallah. But if we did an honest audit of ourselves, we would be shocked with what we find. The things that we do in a day, in a night, in a week, in a month, in a year. If the backbiting is arising from anger or jealousy or hatred for someone, then each of these causes has its own treatment. We'll talk about it inshallah in the future. We'll talk about anger and the treatment for anger, jealousy, the treatment for jealousy, and hatred and the treatment for hatred. We'll talk about these things inshallah. If the backbiting is arising because of one of these causes, then those causes must be addressed. And if this backbiting is for the sake of supporting or agreeing with one's friends, then a person should think that, am I going to please others at the cost of displeasing Allah? How far is that going to get me? Today I am backbiting about this person to make so and so happy. I'm making him happy by destroying my deen, by burning away all my deeds, my iman, my akhirah. Is it worth it to make this person happy for a little while? And if the backbiting is because I'm trying to raise my profile a little bit, I'm trying to raise my profile by lowering someone else's, then I should ask myself that the one who backbites, does he get higher in the sight of Allah or lower in the sight of Allah? He obviously falls in the sight of Allah. He does not get any higher. If I have fallen in the sight of Allah, how can I can be raised in this dunya? Is there any chance? After I have fallen in the sight of Allah, that I will be elevated in this dunya? Absolutely not. Can't be. Because the rejection by Allah for this person is certain. Allah has rejected this person. And the acceptance by people, the acceptance of people for him is very uncertain. In fact, in most cases, it will never happen. And if someone is backbiting for the sake of making fun, they should imagine themselves being ridiculed by the angels in the sky. As I am making fun of this brother or sister of mine, angels are mocking me, making fun of me, saying even worse things about me that are actually true. So one who mocks people in the world, he gets mocked in the heavens. So these are some of the treatments for this disease, this problem of backbiting. Now there may be some exceptions. Exceptions means that there may be some occasions where we have to say something about someone and it will not be deemed as backbiting in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, someone has been hurt or damaged by someone. Now they need to claim that damage. So to claim the damage, they go to an authority. They go to the courts, they go to a judge, they go to a lawyer, they go to the law enforcement people and say, look, so-and-so assaulted me, beat me up. So-and-so took my money. Now, for you to report a loss or damage is not included in backbiting. You're just claiming your haqq. You have been mistreated. You have been wronged, and you are trying to rectify the matter. You're trying to just claim what belongs to you. But if you were to take this and start spreading rumors about the person, that would be another story. Similarly, there is a person who is in authority to rectify a situation. You are not in authority. And you need that person's assistance to correct the problem. So you go to them as someone who is in a higher position of influence or authority. You go to them and say, this is the issue, it needs to be rectified. If your intention is, of course, just to complain and make the other person look bad, Allah will judge you accordingly. But if your intention is to really rectify it, and you are not making it look worse than it actually is, you're saying it as it is, you're bringing the attention of that authority, that person, or that body to it so that it can be corrected, it will not be deemed as backbiting. Similarly, if some incident happens with you and another person, and there is some kind of a shari'i masla involved, two business partners had a dealing, and that partnership went sour, something wrong happened, and now you need a clarification on the issue. What is the ruling in Islamic law for this issue? What am I entitled to, or what do I have to pay? So you are making this inquiry, there's another person involved, it could be something negative that has happened in that deal. To mention it, to talk about it when making a religious inquiry is not backbiting. But in these cases, it's better not to take people's names. You should not take the person's name unless it's necessary. And if there is someone who openly commits sins, openly commits crimes, like unjust rulers, going around killing people, going around doing this, going around doing that, people whose lifestyle is based on openly sinning. So if a person says something negative about them, about that act that they are doing, it will not be deemed backbiting because the person has openly exposed himself. To them, it's a lifestyle. To them, it's something good. So how do we make up for it? We make up for it. The kafara for ghiba is first of all to regret it from the bottom of our hearts. To have remorse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and beg Him for forgiveness. For the sin of overlooking, the sin of being so negligent, for the sin of essentially hurting and damaging someone's image and someone's respect. And we should ask that person to forgive us. Because until that person forgives us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also not forgive us. And once we have said something negative about someone, then the way to make up for it is to start spreading positive things about that person. Praising them in front of others. We have harmed them by saying bad things about them in front of others. Now we should praise them in front of others. And we should make dua for them behind their back. And we should make istighfar for them. Oh Allah, forgive them. Oh Allah, give them a high status. Oh Allah, protect them. Make dua for them. So this is the process that we must go through if we have backbited someone. And this is just one element in the list of the catastrophes of the tongue. This is one evil of the tongue, backbiting. There are many others, and inshallah, with the course of time, in upcoming sessions, we will talk about them in detail. We will address it, define it, and we will talk about its causes, and of course talk about the treatment, and we'll talk about what Allah and His Rasul ﷺ have said about this, and how can we rid ourselves and rid our communities and societies of these weaknesses. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.